Over to you, Mark.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Photo Studio Operations Forum 22. And welcome to our next session, Overcoming Workflow Challenges in an Editorial Post-Production, with Emerald Monzon from Nike. Now, Emerald is an editorial post-production specialist and will take us on a journey through her experience in post-production at Nike's Icon.LA studio, the flagship studio home of the company's global brand imaging operations, hosting full productions for product and editorial photography, video, all in one place. Now, over the next 20 minutes, you'll get an understanding of what the post-production team do, how it functions, the challenges, the successes, the art of managing multiple teams, creating cohesion in the face of high volume, and driving clarity and other tips for streamlining workflows in bespoke projects. Now, don't forget to join the discussion in the chat tab, and please use the Q&A box to send us your questions at any point throughout the session, and we'll get through as many as possible afterwards. So without further ado, sit back and enjoy. Hello, Emerald.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this particular session at the Photo Studio Operations Forum. I'm very excited to be here. As Mark introduced, my name is Emerald, and I'll be going over with you some of the challenges that we encounter and that we overcome in editorial post-production workflows. It's my little niche of the creative production process. And I'm going to introduce you to myself, a little bit about my background, and the post team that I work with at Nike's first creative production studio. Yeah, so let's get it started. So my background is in, sorry about that. I have a little over 16 years of experience in complex photo retouching, compositing, color treatment, grading, and project management. And a lot of my background is in entertainment, fashion, and some product. A lot of it does fall into marketing, which is where I work in currently. And in my current role, I am the editorial post-production specialist for Nike's first flagship studio based in Los Angeles. It's a fairly young studio, and in that video you just saw, that was a little sneak peek of what goes on day to day in our studio. It's a beautiful representation, but it is pretty vibrant in there. There's music playing and all that good stuff. Here is our studio that's a little under 5 years old. To give you a brief history of this studio, it was first created as a studio to produce premium product imagery and video for PDP, product display page imagery, the 6 sub photos that you would see on Nike.com. And the purpose was to centralize all point of sale content for sales and sell-in tools. And over time, it has gradually grown into supporting more editorial storytelling marketing. And that's where I fall in my team with editorial post-production. We basically work on special projects, bespoke projects that are a little lower volume but high touch, whereas most of what the studio produces is very standardized and operationalized. And so where I sit is in post-production, and here's a breakdown of breakdown of our team, there are 4 core teams under post-production, which is PDP, the heart of the studio and the main purpose of the studio. QA, asset management. We like to call them the gatekeepers of all the assets, the marketing assets, and any imagery that comes out of the studio to publish. They ensure accuracy, quality, and that it's meeting brand standards and the style ethos for Nike. Video, anything that encompasses motion, graphics for Nike.com and other tools. And where I sit is in editorial. So like I said, all the storytelling, marketing, more of the heart and emotion of what we market in Nike. And we work with a lot of teams globally, and any teams that come into the studio and shoot directly. All right, so down to the nitty-gritty of what we'll be talking about today are the challenges to post-production workflow. And I'm sure a lot of these are some challenges that you may encounter and face in different ways in your teams. And I hope there's some tidbits that you can pull from here and apply to your productions wherever you sit. And these are 3 common challenges that we face regularly, and I'll be sharing the challenges and some successes that has worked for our team over the past few years, and in my experience in the past with entertainment. So the first challenge is unexpected volume, which can occur anytime during the production workflow, but it happens a lot in post. And I'll talk about the increase and decrease in the scope of work and how it impacts us. Challenge number 2, new requirements. We can get this at any point also in the creative production process. There's different types of new requirements that can occur, especially during post, and how it can impact us. And the last common challenge I'll go over is maintaining creative cohesion in the face of high volume. Sometimes we do get some pretty high volume projects, especially seasonal productions. They tend to have a much higher scope of work. And this is a challenge. It's a fun challenge, but it's about creating that consistency and cohesion with large teams that are working with you. All right. So in this first challenge is unexpected volume. So a lot of the times we think of a volume in terms of an increase, like more. We want more because we do love to see more imagery, more creativity in our projects. But it can also impact us when there's less volume that is requested during production. So it's common for this to change during post as we are working through different rounds. And an increase with volume, understandably, that can impact the timeline, the budget, resources. We can get a little bit bottlenecked if it's a significant amount of volume that comes in during post-production. And when we get a decrease in volume, that can impact us in other ways, such as the teams will see that, or the different stakeholders or the client can see that we were under budget, and in the future that can paint a picture that we won't need as much budget, but it was just a unique case for this particular project that needed less assets. So another way it can impact us is different teammates, different editors that we have can lose other opportunities. If it's a higher volume, they can be given excess workload, and that can compromise quality, time, and budget. All right, and in the second challenge, we can often get new requirements, new requests. This can happen at any point of the production process. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced new requirements. This can happen especially when creative directors or the clients have a vision even during production, during shooting. We can get new creative requests. This can happen often, especially during post, where it can be anything from changing wall colors, changing the skies, adding skies, anything can happen, and that is something we have to encounter and tackle, carefully. A new type of requirement is spec changes. That can be anywhere from the crops, the deliverable specifications, anything with certain shoots. We want to have more close-ups, and that can also impact post with how much detail we have to work on and zoom in on. Another challenge, an exciting challenge sometimes, is a product or design change. As with products, we can't always receive sample products in time for a production, so we'll have to plan carefully and gather different products that are matching closer to color or design and adjust accordingly. And that can impact post quite a bit if we're not ahead of it or sure how many requirements that are needed ahead of time. And it can affect the team's bandwidth. And again, it's another risk to budget and meeting deadlines if we don't have everything in place prior, especially with product and design changes. But that can always, you don't always have control of when products can come in. All right, and the last common challenge that we encounter, it's one of my favorites, is maintaining creative cohesion with especially high volume projects. And with editorial special projects, it's a challenge because we have some high volume seasonal projects that still require that high touch refinement. And we have large teams that work with us, and it's all about communication and streamlining everything to create a beautiful cohesion in a large set of assets. And some ways that we maintain cohesion has worked for us for the past few years is aligning with creative teams early and often, and aligning with your editors and anyone working on touching the assets, all teams, QA, and whoever is going to be reviewing these. And what has worked for us also is providing a preliminary set of work for the client and stakeholders review. For example, if you allow enough time, you can provide a set of 1 to 2 images per set. If you have many sets, you can try to do 1% and 1 image per set for a preliminary review and approval, so that could be your reference go by for the entire set. And we have, as an example of this image here, this is a seasonal project that can range anywhere from 200 to 400 images a season, and time is of the essence. So we have to make sure we can get all this consistency and cohesion in a good amount of time. And a last way we can maintain the cohesion is have a dedicated QA expert, a teammate that can review and ensure the quality in retouching and color and lighting across the images. It's always good to have multiple experts, multiple eyes that can work together to create that cohesion. All right. And lastly, just going to share overall successes that has worked for the editorial post-production workflow over the past few years, and has really have us dialed in each season. And we're constantly improving. We're always trying to learn best practices and efficiencies that we can apply to our workflows and projects. Since it's not standardized, we're always on our toes and preparing for what can come next. So the first type of success that's worked for us is having clearly defined roles and collaboration. So we have designated experts in every part of the workflow. And sometimes when push comes to shove, we have to have all hands on deck when needed. But it is very helpful to have certain rules set in place so that you're still accountable and responsible for a very specific part of the workflow process, but we all work well together and collaborate when needed. If we have just a high volume coming in, all the unexpected requirements that comes in, we just all work together and make it work. An important factor here that I'm sure we all strive to do is staying organized. So we use a lot of collaborative project management tools. Well, not a lot, but we use, it's great to use a collaborative tool that is shared across teams so that you stay connected, stay organized, and see updates live. Tools such as Asana, Airtable works great. We also use Adobe Workfront's Proof HQ for review cycles. That has really helped with our efficiencies in reviewing and keeping in line with timelines. Another factor here for success is streamlined communication. So driving clarity as early as you can to prevent curveballs is great. Meet with relevant teams early and as often as you can. Ask questions. I know it's hard when you're in the zone, you're in the flow of work, but it's good to touch base once in a while in the workflow, especially in between review cycles, so that you're all aligned on the requirements and what's expected. Another great factor that's helped is building relationships with different experts, such as the photographers, can be automation experts, creative folks that can really help bring your project to life and keep everything streamlined. It's important that we all work together, not against each other, because we all have that shared common goal of creating a beautiful product in the end. So it's great to organically build those relationships with your studio mates and have that success at the end. And lastly is managing expectations. With editorial, change is inevitable, and it's, we can't always standardize things in editorial special projects because it's creative. It can be anything. It's a storytelling process. So when things change, the first and foremost important thing to do is remain calm and flexible. We have to be agile and be able to be flexible with changes that occur, move work around, adjust timelines and editors' schedules. It's a lot of that during the planning and sometimes during the post-production workflow. When new challenges present itself, new requirements, we assess the level of new changes first and see what is actually feasible to do. Do we have the bandwidth? We ask ourselves questions and see if it's possible to complete. If not, we'll connect back with stakeholders and negotiate timelines and budget if possible to make this work. And again, another thing about communication is meeting with teams vital to the production that you're working on. It's important to stay connected and work with all teams that are relevant to that production so that the expectations are managed. All right, and that wraps it for the challenges and successes for the editorial post-production workflow at Nike. I appreciate all your time for attending this session, and I'm always open to learning and growing and happy to connect with you on LinkedIn and discuss photo production workflows.
Emerald, that was fantastic. Thank you very much. Now, we have got a ton of questions. The grilling will start now, but just before we move on to the questions, I just want to kind of reflect on, and I'm sure everyone will agree that there's a lot that you've just talked about that we can all relate to. Particularly, let's face it, in creative, we are a service and we deal with a lot of stakeholders and a lot of challenges. What I particularly love what you've just shared is how you focus on the successes. It's human nature to focus on the negative. And I think to kind of bring teams together to drive culture, focusing on the successes, a real big win. So I've got a few questions and I'll kind of fire it away in no particular order, but I'll start with one that I really like, actually. What are your top tips for someone just starting out in the industry?
Starting out in the post-production in general, or just photo production?
I'd say post.
Tips in post, some tips for just starting out. I would say networking is great. networking with different experts in the field, photographers, other post-production specialists, getting a lot of informational interviews down and some experience, asking about different people's experience, because it can range. But it's good to get as much knowledge and experience from others as you can. And if you're trying to work into the industry, just constantly reach out. I remember when I started, I even had a set goal of how many studios I would email per day, how many people I'd try to connect with on LinkedIn per day, just to get in there and get to know different industry experts. Yeah,
absolutely. Curiosity is key, isn't it? And kind of putting yourself out there.
Put yourself out there.
Definitely. So how do you handle excess post-production in tight deadlines? Do you outsource? Do you bring in contractors? Do you grow your team?
Yeah, all of the above. You bring on contractors. You can build your network of different studios that you could work with, other retouching houses or studios that you can help leverage for your projects, especially with the excess workload. Sometimes all your contractors are already booked on it, so it's good to have that network already established as much as you can ahead of time. Yeah.
Definitely, especially for them unpredictable peaks.
Especially, yeah.
Do you have basic SLAs in place when scoping new projects? How has your team quantified on average how much time it takes to do post-production?
Yeah, we have a set KPI standard setup, but we've been pretty good about assessing each season to ensure that it's staying within SLA and KPIs for our post-production work. But if there is a scope creep, we have to reassess.
Yeah. Okay, good. And do you have an in-house DAM that your teams use? Also, what project management tools do you use to manage the work? I know you referenced a couple of the collaboration tools in the presentation.
Yeah, we have. I believe we do have a DAM. Our QA team works with various tools for data asset management, and for our project management tool, our main tool is Airtable, which is great. Yeah. I'm not being sponsored. It's just a great tool. Yeah.
No, I think it's really important that there's a lot of different tools, and you can drive a lot of inconsistencies if you're not careful. I think if there's one thing we've learned over the last couple of years is collaboration is key, communication, managing expectations, something you spoke about. It's vital. Yeah. Especially in the service industry that we're in.
Yeah, I think with sharing more information is better than withholding. I know sometimes with teams, they're like protective of the information they have, but in order to get the project done, it's great we have it all centralized on a tool like Airtable.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. How do you manage deadlines when approval sign-offs are pending from key stakeholders?
How we manage deadlines? We just message as often as we can. We reach out, especially if they're in studio. In person is great. I know we've had to work with Zoom and emails and messaging tools for a long time, but if you can, as much as you can, try to meet in person and work it out and get these, try to get these deadlines met, because you don't always have control. There's only so much wiggle room you can have to push the deadline out, but there are seasonal launches, especially with apparel companies, so we have to really get ahead of that. It's uncomfortable sometimes, but you have to push. You have to push. Yeah. Yeah,
definitely. How do you resolve snags in the workflow where client reviews become variable?
Like they change or conflict each other.
I always reference, I always reference the Spice Girls in this situation. Someone doesn't know what they want until it's in front of us. So tell us what you want. Now tell us what you really want.
Oh, I love that. I want to use that. Yeah. Yeah, it's just being very clear and upfront and show, just expressing exactly like, okay, this is, you wanted A and now we want B. You present the options and try to really make it clear, because I know sometimes at heart, I'm a creative person too. I can't make up my mind about things too sometimes when I'm on my own personal projects, but kind of present it like in video games. I think it's called the illusion of choice. Like you just present the two options and just ask to decide, like which direction should we go in.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
And one more question, and this is the
Sure.
final one. Any others that aren't answered, we'll share. We can go on this tab and we can answer after the event.
For sure.
What types of volumes are you managing on a daily basis?
On a daily basis, daily, it's hard to say because we work. It takes a couple of weeks to sometimes a month to complete a project. So the volume, I would say per day, if we had to count daily, I would say could be anywhere from 10 to 20
Okay.
assets per day. Yeah.
All kind of running in parallel.
Yeah, it can run in parallel. Different projects can be in
Yeah.
parallel, or
I suppose looking at the variable types of work, anything from photo to video, it could be quite, how long's a piece of string in some cases, isn't it?
Yeah. Sometimes we often collaborate with video with motion graphic, like GIFs, and so we're editing and meeting with video to put the GIF together. So that can be a whole day. That can be a few assets for one day.
Yeah. Cool.
Great questions. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, they are very good questions. Thank you very much. To the point, I can't keep up with them, so I'm gonna pause there. What we can, I'm conscious of time here, guys. So what we can do is answer them after the event. Emerald, I just want to thank you for sharing your stories. That I think has been absolutely fantastic. I've had some great questions through. I really appreciate your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. My pleasure.
And so what's up next? We join the Creative Force guys discussing flow photography and flow reporting in the modern photo studio. So I'll see you shortly. Thanks. Bye now.